Georgia, Florida.
Mm.
Interesting beginning, right? Florida comes out and scores.
Yep.
Georgia stalls in the red zone, even though Florida doesn't even have a third down play called, and the D coordinator's running out there trying to call timeout.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then we're like, oh, wait, no, Florida's actually awful.
Yeah. Oh, God. Hey, listen, they scripted for success that first drive, and I thought they did a really good job of, one, running the football. I mean, I said that in my keys to the game for Florida, if you want to make this a game, one, you got to be able to run it, and two, Eugene Wilson, who's your best athlete, has to be involved. And he was. Like, you saw how talented he is and why the comparisons to Percy Harvin are kind of being floated around Gainesville at the moment. The guy's an absolute stud.
Wait,
he's electric at the ball.
Who's being compared to
Eugene
Percy
Wilson.
Harvin?
Eugene Wilson, number 3.
Yeah, but why?
Because he's electric as hell.
So wait, we're comparing him to maybe the most electric football player we've seen our entire life in the SEC?
I'm not. I'm saying that's
out of here.
I'm not. I'm saying
nobody with the first name Eugene would be compared to Percy Harvin.
Gainesville is talking about. I'm not saying that. I was in Gainesville. I'm just
I agree with Bill Kimmy. Who?
I'm just relaying the message to you, T-Bob. Don't shoot the messenger over here. Jeez Louise. All right. Anyways, it was perfect. It was a perfect start for the Gators until Georgia's defensive line showed up and played the best game that they've played the entire season. Yeah. Like, that was the difference. Like, we'll get on the offense and how good Carson was, and the run game and the receiver stepping up and Oscar making plays and yada 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 yada. To me, the biggest thing and the biggest difference was that D-line showed up. They showed up. They harassed Graham Mertz. They slowed down the run game. So I think between that and then Billy Napier with some just awful decisions, man. Awful decisions on some play calling. You're actually moving the ball. Then you try some double reverse. That killed momentum. Then on a 4th down, you try a trick play from 1 yard, and that gets just stuffed.
Scared money don't make money. Even though there is something inherently scared about running a trick play on 4th and 1. Like, either go for it or don't. Like, are you a bitch or not? Like you go for it or you don't. Like, don't hit me with any fanciful bullshit on 4th and 1.
The bad decisions, some bad moments for them was the big difference. So, but Georgia's D-line, it was good to see those guys finally have a game in which maybe you silence some of the critics about, obviously it's not as elite as they've been for the past 2 years, but are you good enough to win a championship with that D-line? I think they answered that.
So let's talk about, no, you're right. So the D-line's interesting, Aaron, to me, because, like, if you're a real Georgia fan, that's probably what you were looking at, right? Like, that's a bit of the Georgia deeper cut. Mm-hmm. If we want to talk about the surface level cut, like what made all the national shows, what everybody was talking about, it's okay, who's going to step up in Brock Bowers' absence? We talk about a lot. And look, I would say credit to Aaron, Josh Pate, Colin Wilson, all in the Snaps family, who all said that they thought that we would see a more explosive Georgia football team. Sans Brock Bowers, not better, but more explosive. And Ladd McConkey going for a 40-yard touchdown to take a 10-7 lead kind of set the tone in that regard. And then you look up at the end of the game, Ladd McConkey, 6 grabs, 135 in a score. Okay. You said Ladd was going to do it, and credit to him. He done and did it.
Well, you had 2 receivers that averaged over 20 yards this game. Ladd had 6 for 135, 22-yard average. And then Dom Lovett, we talked about him and how his best game was the last time they played, and how you saw him starting to emerge as a receiver. 4 catches, 83 yards, 20-yard average. So
still there was some touchdown for Lovett on the year, and for Rara. I don't know what's going on. They got to find a way to get in the end zone if Georgia's going to win a championship. But still, an explosive day for the receiving core that you had.
Really a part of the offense for 3 or 4 games now. Like, he was not on the field for the first 4 games of the season at all.
Oh, see, I'm not watching that close. I didn't realize that.
He wasn't. He was struggling learning the playbook, and you kind of understand why. It's 2 completely different offenses from where he was to where he is now. So, and if you look at the total stats this year for Georgia, Carson does a great job of spreading the wealth. I know there's a lot of focus on Brock, so Brock kind of gets all the attention, but from there, he does a good job mixing it up, which, obviously for a defense is an absolute pain in the butt to have to deal with. So I thought it was a great win. Like I said, the defense was the most impressive thing to me, that D-line, and Carson for another game throws for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, very efficient, accurate with the football, good decision-making. They ran the ball really well. It was one of those games where, to me, we're going to look up at the end of the season. Florida's going to be 6-6, so it may not mean as much then. But
it's not going to.
Right now, it's as we head into the first playoff ranking, this was a statement win for Georgia at the moment. That
We
I
can't
think
call
that
it
the committee,
statement. We can't
I
can we
think
call
the
it
committee will look
statement?
at it and say, like,
I don't feel
okay,
like statement's too far.
back to back national champs,
Mm.
and they just dominated in a rivalry game against a 5-2 football team. I think
No.
it's
Let's
enough to
be
keep them at
clear.
1.
No. Time out. The playoff committee is not going to ding Georgia for something
No,
like this, but let's not go so far as to call this a statement win. This is a bad Florida team. I mean, Aaron, I even
it
tried
is.
to give the defense credit on Wednesday for Florida because I'm looking them up statistically and I'm like, they're not awful. And then you're like, well, who have they played? And you were exactly right. Like they obviously hadn't played anyone. They finally ran into a good offense, and well, look
But
what happened.
was this a good enough win to allow the committee to put them at 1? I say keep this be the first rating.
Probably with the history of coming off back-to-back natties, or it's going to be Michigan. But functionally, what does it fucking matter?
It doesn't.
Like it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It'll be good TV. Now, the more interesting TV. Well, actually, I don't know which the more interesting one would be because either one, if you put Georgia or Michigan,
Don't put Michigan in the top 4 because of the cheating scandal. That would be interesting TV.
Now that would be an overcorrection. Like I think I finally figured out how I feel about that scandal, and like Deflategate, it's probably no big deal in the end. But like Deflategate, it's kind of fascinating to us because it exposes a level of gamesmanship that we were not aware of previously.
Mhm.
And it was taken to a new level. Brady didn't do this in Deflategate, but Michigan definitely took sign stealing to a new advanced level that we hadn't seen previously as well, which combined with the correlation adds to the interest. But look, Georgia will be 1 or 2 in the first playoff ranking. So like Georgia fans have nothing to worry about.
Yep.
I want to talk about Carson Beck in a second. Real quick, though, I don't want to just, rush past this, but my boy Juice Gentili, who's a Alabama fan, texted me during the game, and I know this joke's been made 1,000 times, but it's like I can't lose sight of it. It says, "How is a white guy named Lad McConkey good at wide receiver?" I mean, we just can't go a day. Like, just really stop and appreciate the fact that you have a white, goofy ass looking TikTok dude named Lad McConkey tearing up the SEC at receiver.
Dude, and he was pulling away from
I know.
too. Like that.
Speed on that
I knew he had
touchdown was
speed,
sick.
but he had a couple runs where I was like, "Damn, Lad! Like I knew you had some wheels, but you were pulling away from guys on defense." And like you always think Florida and athletes, and he was pulling away from those athletes.
Jonathan
they've been missing that.
says, I'm sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, just say they've been missing that from him.
Oh, no, they have. And,
Yep.
he was hurt. And now he's healthy. So, and he's got opportunity. And he did the most of it. Like, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm ecstatic because I wanted to see Lad McConkey step up, and he did. Jonathan Burns said something tells me T-Bob's picking Mizzou next week. No, not in Athens, bro. Come on. Talk about it. Again, my Georgia doubt has never been about the regular season or the SEC championship. It is simply come playoff time. Will they be good enough or not? But they're starting to convince me. Like, I'm not going to front. Georgia is starting
Next
to
week will be a
convince
good
me.
game now. Can we figure out a way to do a Snaps live show in Missouri or in Athens for the Missouri game?
Oh, that'd be so sick. It's on Saturday though.
I think it'd be a little bit hard for you with
bro. I got
Alabama,
LSU.
LSU.
Dog. I mean, that's basically a national holiday or a local state holiday around these parts. If LSU beats Alabama next week, Louisiana might fall into the ocean from people jumping up and down all at the same time. We got to talk about Carson Beck. It would probably gone too long without talking about Carson Beck. He was fantastic today. Very efficient. 19 of 28, 315, 2 touchdowns. Again, I continue to be impressed. It's not overwhelming to the point where I'm willing to fully give myself over to him quite yet, but it's also not as underwhelming as it was early on where I'm like doubting him anymore.
Yep.
Like he's definitely winning me over.
He's a stud. I'll let the play for the rest of the season kind of do the talk. And he has 2 more weeks. Like this was a rivalry game, so maybe it means a little bit more for Georgia fans. But the next 2 weeks are really more of the statement games for him, and even Tennessee and Knoxville. And Tennessee's a good defense, but you're going against a good Missouri team and a good Ole Miss team without still your best weapon in Brock Bowers. Like Florida's not a good team. Like you and I know, this will be a 6-6 team. It's all said and done. They're 6-6 football.
That's what we got. I know it feels good to be your rivals, and I don't want to like dog fans shit on him. Have fun with tonight. Yes. But that's a bad team.
Yes.
or an okay team, whatever you want to call it.
These next two teams are really good football teams that can score points
I agree with that. I love Mizzou.
that maybe you have to possibly match, similar to what, like, I don't think it's going to be like an LSU Missouri game that we saw a few weeks ago where, you know, it gets into the 40s,
No, bro.
but like,
The
like
Georgia
maybe like that.
is
But like
light years ahead
you're
of
gonna
the
have to
Alabama defense.
these next two games and even 3 games are your 3 hardest games of the season. Your 3 hardest games.
No. The end of actually, if I'm a Georgia fan, I'm super excited
Yep.
because the end of the schedule has now evolved to a point where you actually feel like it's going to better prepare you for the postseason.
Yes.
Like my big worry for Georgia was that they were just going to sleepwalk through this entire season and they're going to wake up in the playoff. They're going to get a fist fight. They're going to be like, what the fuck? But they got in a fist fight in Jordan Hare and they found a way out. And I'm like, okay, that's a bonus point. And then they handle this team. That's a bonus point, right? And then, so yeah, if they go down against some actual good teams at the end here and they handle them, well, then they're all of a sudden looking pretty championship ready to me.
I agree.
So,
I agree. This is going to be a fun 3-week stretch. So I think Carson's prime, though. I think Carson right now, he's lathered up. He's seeing the field well. He's throwing the ball extremely well. You know, we know what he can and can't do, and I don't think he can't do much. He's pretty much checked off all the boxes in my opinion. Now that the team trusts him and the coordinator and Bobo trusts him and Kirby trusts him, it's full steam ahead for number 15. So great win, man. He's a first rounder. He's a first fucking rounder. Kid makes some special throws.
Are there any other? Well, he'll be a first. Maybe. Georgia's getting okay. So, have you ever heard about my Alabama theory? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Georgia's getting into that weird territory where if I'm an NFL scout, I have to really make sure I love the individual. And granted, they have a lot of individuals kicking ass, so it's not hard to follow along, right? But it's because anytime they play a team, it's not an even playing field. Like in the NFL, it's an even playing field. So individuals start to rise and fall. Every time Georgia plays, they are significantly better than their opponent on a pure player-to-player basis. So it's like,
I know it's hard to judge, but without Brock, is there a first rounder or second rounder on that team right now on the offense?
Oh, that's
that he's throwing to.
It's not an unfair point. It's not
like,
you're right.
Like, I mean, Alabama, you know, they had first round receivers, so like it was kind of hard, like to judge. Say, Mac Jones.
Drafting Mac Jones when he had 3 guys,
Heisman Trophy winner receiver.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that you might have fucked up there a little bit.
Yeah,
but
that's a little harder.
It's true.
That's why we said like these next 3 or 4 weeks for Carson were the most important for him to, if he wanted to leave after this season, to ball out, because now you're saying like, hey, I got a bunch of guys that are transfer receivers, a white guy in Lad McConkey, that none of these guys are going to be first or second round draft picks. Maybe they're mid round guys, but like without Brock, who is my first round guy, if I can play at a high level, then you know that this kid is legit.
Well, and if he wins a championship, you know, like that, it's like Friday Night Lights, like that just always helps.